Let's get to it!
What's up, fellow Titan Quest fans? If you watched my How to Deal Damage video, you are aware that I'm not the greatest fan of ailments, because compared to crits, they fall really short in terms of damage. However, there's an exception to this rule. Rupture is not an ailment type in itself, but a special effect that happens when you have the Bleeding Ailment and unlock its special effect. We are a ranged build with the masteries Warfare and Rogue, because these two masteries have good Rupture support in their passives. Let's first take a look at what Rupture is. The ailment type Bleeding is applied through pierce damage. Once you got some bleed stacks on a target and once you have unlocked Rupture in your passives, you can go to town with Rupture damage. From all the ailments and ailment effects, Rupture is by far the most powerful. So I just had to make a build out of it. Generally, I like ailments for the special effect that the ailment type brings. The ailment damage usually falls short to critical hits. More on that in my damage video. Rupture is the strongest ailment type, because it deals huge chunks of damage. Other ailment effects freeze the enemies or slow them. That's a cool gimmick, but it's better to have a dead enemy than a slowed down enemy. So what is Rupture? If you apply the Bleeding Ailment, you get a 1% chance per bleeding stack to apply Rupture. Rupture deals 30% of the target's max HP as true damage. For stronger enemies, this number gets lower. I assume enemy leaders take 10% of their max HP as Rupture damage and bosses only 5%. Rupture can trigger once in 0.4 seconds. That means at the most it can trigger 3 times in 1.2 seconds. In reality, you nudge an enemy with 2 shots, they have only 2/3 of HP remaining, and a moment later Rupture triggers and kills them. 30% health loss as true damage per Rupture trigger is no joke. This damage is also true damage, so there's no way for the enemy to reduce it. That's good in theory, but how does that work in practice? You shoot a target a couple of times, then Rupture triggers 1 or 2 times and the target is dead. By the way, we are a bow build, because it's the easiest to apply ailments with a ranged build. Our primary attacks, Volley, lets us hit multiple foes per shot. We also have our main spell, Rain of Arrows, that applies a ton of ailments to big groups, and that skill requires a bow. But before we dive into the skills in detail, let's go first over the pros and cons for the Rupture build. The strongest suit of the build is definitely that it is quite powerful and that it has no problem with plus 20 enemy level. The build focuses on one of the strongest mechanics in the game, and it really pays off. It is also a safe and fun build. Coming to the cons, it's actually hard to find a real downside to this. The general kill speed is high, but for bosses it's medium at best. Don't get me wrong, it's quite alright, but bosses take a lot less Rupture damage, so they take a while longer. The boss kill speed is still faster than most builds. Now that we got that out of the way, let me show you the active and passive skills and their modifiers and feats. When leveling this build, you skill the Warfare tree first, because at tier 4 there's the passive ability that the whole build revolves around, Eviscerate. This skill unlocks Rupture in the first place, but also increases the bleeding chance, bleeding damage and also Rupture damage. Use the feat Rage to deal an additional 64 damage per Rage. As a Warfare build that mainly attacks with primary attacks, we are a Rage build of course. We got 16 Rage in total, so that's an additional 1024 Rupture damage when we are at full Rage. Bleed amount is the other feat to use. We want to increase that a little at least. The second best ability for this build is at tier 4 of Rogue Mastery, so it takes a while to unlock that. The skill is called Open Wound. This passive increases the Rupture chance and damage. Use the feats Rupture chance, this one needs no further explanation. Rupture mark damage is also great, especially against bosses. The feat gives a flat number of additional rupture damage. This damage is doubled against your mark. This helps with the kill speed of bosses and some monster heroes. We use the Mark for Death skill on them. Let's look at our primary attack. Put 1 point in Tailwind, 1 in Volley to pierce enemies and shoot multiple arrows every so often. Max out Onslaught to benefit from the Rage mechanic. This is incredibly good here, because Rage increases our attack speed and also the total damage, which includes Rupture damage. Also put 4 out of 5 in Enhanced Ailment. That skill gives plus 20% base weapon ailment chance and plus 400% ailment chance. In practice, that means that a shot on an enemy usually leads to 5 bleeding stacks. A follow-up shot has 10 stacks, etc. 15 stacks is the maximum. So 3 shots on an enemy should be enough to let them bleed out and let Rupture damage do its thing. By the way, the Enhanced Ailment modifier gives so much ailment chance that you mostly don't need much more ailment chance bonuses. It's very weird, because the game is full of that. You will see that we put a lot of other effects towards critical hits. Next up is the third most important effect, which is the Rogue Aura Preparation. Max out Enhanced Ailments and Enhanced Crits. Let's look at our main ability, Rain of Arrows. Rain is such a nice spell against groups. Max out Consume Overwhelm, so that you shoot 3 times to have max overwhelm, then consume it with a rain. The combination of 3 primary attacks and 1 rain of arrows is very powerful. That goes for all types of enemies. Max out Enhanced Ailment to boost the skill's ailment chance. Rain of arrows alone leads to a lot of rupture triggers. For small fry, it's often enough to cast a rain of arrows on them. I suggest you put 1 point in Pincushion and 1 point in Downpour to further increase the damage. Warfare Mastery has my favorite blessing spell called Valor. Blessing spells are these spells that you activate for a few seconds and they give you a speed and damage boost. The Warfare equivalent of that is Valor, and that thing is the best out of all of them, simply because it has modifiers that increase the total damage. Use Frenzy and Enhanced Crits. Total damage increase is so good here, because that includes Rupture damage. Remember that we have Rage? Let's say we are at 16 Rage stacks. That is a 16% total damage increase. Frenzy increases the total damage by whopping 56%, so that's 72% increase in total. The 30% Rupture damage upon a trigger gets increased by 72%. Then we got our main passives, which each increase the Rupture damage by 52%. That's plus 104% in total. So we got the normal Rupture damage of 30% of the enemy's max HP. This value gets increased by 176%. This leads to Rupture triggers being really devastating. Max out weapon proficiency, as always, go for crits and attack speed. Honestly, why skill the 30% more ailment chance when your primary attack already does plus 400%? Also max out Martial Expert for damage and pierce. At Rogues tier 1 you got to max out accuracy and use the feat's crit chance and crit damage. Deft Hands is also good, max it out and use crit chance and attack speed. We need to max out the Rage passives of course. First skill Battle Rage and use Rage Amount and Rage on Kill. Frenzied Rage at tier 4 is also great, use Rage Overflow and Rage Duration. Deadly Affliction is a great tier 2 rogue passive. Skill it up to level 6 in order to use the feat Ailment Amount. With that we got a maximum of 15 bleeding stacks, which is enough. At tier 4 we use the crit scaler Surgical Precision. Use crit chance and crit damage. Crits are not so bad here. We are an ailment build, admittedly, but the higher the damage that you deal, the higher the ailment stacks that you apply. Flicker is a good movement spell. Max out Repeat obviously. Rupture is also cool. This feat is a way to level up Flicker more. With the Rupture feat maxed out, you can just dodge the enemies for a quick Rupture trigger. At level 50 this is still on 2. Just 1 point in Mark for Death. With Shadow Spell, that way the mark stays on and we can make use of the feat Rupture Mark damage. Use 2 points in Barrier for the fast barrier and guard. You also dump a lot of points in the dodge. Use cooldown charge, distance and dash attack. We are an agility hero and our agility armor often gives us a better dodge cooldown rate, so we can dodge around all the time and spam flicker. This gives us very good mobility and we can dodge out of harm's way whenever necessary. Battlefield awareness is cute. Use it to enhance your energy management, skill modifiers conservation and inspiration. Why do we need energy? For our main spell, Rain of Arrows. We want to spam that spell, so we need to invest a little in our energy pool and energy regeneration. The build here is at level 50 at the moment. At a higher level, I would recommend putting points in the rogue passives Anatomy and Dismantling Tactics. The attribute point distribution is very straightforward. Skill Agility just to hold all the good agility gear, then dump the rest of the points in Vigor. Trust me, the little extra damage that you would deal had you invested all the points in agility is not worth it. It is much better to have more survivability, for that you need vigor. This is especially the case if you adjust the monster level to a plus 20. Let's talk about items. The build requires 2 specific items. First you need a good bow. Try to get one similar to this, with flat pierce damage, percentile pierce damage and ailment power. This build does not use damage conversions, so we deal a little poison damage as well. You basically need the relic Essence of the Bow of Apollo. This one increases your damage by 60% and also heals. I use the epic ring Kratos Coil. This one increases the max rage stacks by 3, which is very good here. The ring also increases the pierce damage. We don't have too many scalars for pierce damage, since we only focus on rupture damage. I also use the epic necklace Moonclaw, just to increase the pierce damage and crit chance. You do not need both of these items. You can go for an amulet that has good energy regeneration and resistances. The other ring that I have is one that you need here. With a high number of flat pierce damage, a big crit chance. If you get other good stats on there, it's a bonus. Instead of Kratos Coil, you can just use 2 of these rings. Your helmet needs the highest number of energy regeneration possible and good resistances. Shoulders need crit chance of course, as always. Even an ailment build wants to have crit chance to deal more initial damage. Again, you got more than enough ailment chance on your primary attack modifier. Your chest armor needs resistances and either health regen, vigor, flat health or glancing hit or projectile chance. Your arm armor wants to have pierce damage increase and ideally attack speed. Your boots need to have off journeying and off phasing, and also a good inherent stat of dodge cooldown rate. Pair that with some centaur hoofs and you got some god tier boots. Go for the highest regeneration value for both potions obviously. We come to the strategy section, where I tell you how to level your hero, the skill order and how to play. This one is very straightforward. During leveling, you become a Rupture build not before level 22. Prioritize Warfare Mastery to get Eviscerate in order to unlock Rupture. You can dump many passive points in Woke Mastery's tier 1 skills. This build needs active and passive skills a lot. You never have too much of them, unlike many other builds. You start your build with a bow, skill Volley and Tailwind first, then max out Onslaught. Just these basic attacks and the Rage mechanic will get you a long way. Once you get to Glaukos Shrine at chapter 1, you unlock tier 3 and you can use Rain of Arrows then. You need some decent energy regeneration just for that spell. It is super powerful though. Speaking of Rain of Arrows, the best way to use it is if you have 3 Overwhelm. Better yet, activate Valor first to boost your damage exponentially and then use Rain of Arrows. This is an insane combination that shreds huge group of monsters and or bosses. The playstyle is very straightforward. Just use primary attack to shoot the enemies, then use Rain of Arrows. Use Mark for Death on strong enemies. Use Valor whenever available and when you need to deal some serious damage. Use the dodge a lot. Agility heroes can spam the dodge all the time because of their inherent stat. Dodge and flicker in combination enable you to evade any enemy attack. Use the barrier every time that you expect a lot of incoming damage. Do not disregard your barrier ability. It is super strong against tough enemies that could kill you with some big swings. Try to max out your resistances as much as possible. The cap is at 60%. Rupture is one of the game's strongest mechanics. It is, however, just extremely strong against all kinds of normal enemies. Bosses are a little tougher. For example, the Ichthyan King is a tough nut to crack. Within a few seconds bosses go down, but I got builds that deal 100k to 500k damage in one swing. This Rupture build is not that fast when it comes to bosses, but it's more on the stronger side if you would rank the build. All in all, I can really recommend the build. This is exactly the build that the devs had in mind when they came up with Rupture, and it shows. It is super powerful and not hard to pull off. You do need to farm a decent bow though. Let me know what you think of this build in the comments. Do you like the Rupture mechanic and do you agree that it's the strongest special effect of all the ailments? Thanks for watching and I'll see you on the next one.